Hi, I'm Dan Phoenix, and today we're going to take a quick look at NSX Intelligence and really, how we can simplify analyzing our traffic flows within the data center without an external tool like VRNI, and then creating rules, modifying them, modeling them, and then applying them to our actual virtual machines um, that are residing on NSX networks. So, let's expand this out. We do have the pretty cool dark mode here to start. It only has dark mode right now in this view, but I like it, especially with the contrast. We can see a few things. We can see in green we have our allowed flows. So these are micro-segmented flows today where NSX has firewall rules. And then the red flows are actually unprotected flows. And there's a bunch of stuff you can do in here, looking at the actual statistics of the actual flows and stuff like that. I like to sort it by virtual machine and look at a particular application. But if I look at like all of my data holistically, again, being pulled from NSX Intelligence, this is just my like little lab that I have that has a bunch of VMs installed, some 3-tier apps, some application discovery that I've already done. Again, some random protected flows, maybe like this DB tier to app tier flow, but a lot of unprotected flows and unanalyzed flows. So what I am going to do is switch to virtual machine view. So I prefer this because I see all my individual VMs across the system. So again, here's all my virtual machines. Obviously traffic flows here. Some of these, there's no traffic flows between them. Either they're sitting on, not being used. And like I know this web server and this app server, they're not part of the server pool right now. So they're there, but there's no traffic. For the rest of my VMs over here, the actual traffic flows, I don't want to see every VM. Maybe I want to look at a particular application like HR. So here's all my VMs that are part of the HR application. I'm going to choose them and click apply. Now I'm going to see the actual flows that are unprotected for that application. And some interesting things here, right? What I expect pretty much is here's my console that I'm actually accessing the web server from. I see some issues. I want to be able to only communicate to the web front end, right? I don't want to be able to speak directly from this console back to the HR, to the app server, especially the database server. But, I have all these different flows today, maybe like app to the DB I want. Out here, I think this is the DNS server. We'll take a look at that in a second. But here's all the flows as part of that analysis. Now, what I want to do is I want to take and create a recommendation. Again, this is going to exit out of the dark mode. Here I can see my 5 VMs that I chose that are part of this application. Do I want to do object-based or IP-based? I definitely want to do object-based. I'm going to do layer 4 only. I don't want to do anything with layer 7 context profile here and start my discovery. This is going to take a few minutes, again, depending on the size of the application, the power of your appliance. I actually, believe it or not, while that's happening, we can take a look at this. I deployed the small appliance, if you want to call it that, in my lab. So here's my NSX-T manager. I'm just running a single node here. But then down below, you can see I have my actual NSX Intelligence appliance. And usually the CPU is running a little low. But because, again, we just kicked off that recommendation, now, the wheels are turning in there as it's creating my rules. Memory, minimum is 64 gig. And, we're using quite a bit of that. Again, we're spiking up over 100% here. I think I can have that scale up to like 20, double 24 CPU if I need it. At any rate, we can see that it's definitely working. A couple things that's a great place to come see the status of NSX Intelligence. If for whatever reason I wanted to stop collecting data, I could do that here. I can get the thumbprint for whatever reason if I needed that. The storage, obviously I got a lot of free space on mine. This is a lab instance. Again, referencing back to my actual environment, so you can kind of picture in your head, here's all my different VMs, here's my apps that I created. So when we go ahead and look at our rules, this will make a little bit more sense. These guys are all on NSX-T segments today. My management traffic, you're not going to see in NSX Intelligence because all this is just on a regular VDS. So let's go back here now and see where we're at from a recommendations perspective. If we're still churning away, again, this definitely takes a little time as it builds the recommendations, and as you can see, it's still discovering. There are some other ones in here. Again, you can see I did a bunch of these here. I like to do the little discovery and just see what happens. This should wrap up in another minute. I do have some options if I wanted to rerun. Maybe a couple days go by and I want to rerun this. Let's see. When I'm pegging the CPU, I don't like to do too much on here. But here we go. We must be getting close. This was an existing one. So again, this looks familiar. This was our actual view of all the applications. And then down below, just like if you're familiar with the NSX firewall table, that's what this kind of represents here, right? So we can see like the actual source side, destination side, and then the services that are part of those flows. And again, this is the entire application. This is all flows. We can look at all VMs in there as well. We can come up here and again, we can click around and do some filtering and look at some different things. But this is just like a high level overview of all of our output that eventually, now we'll see here, it's ready to publish. If we want to publish this guy, we'll go ahead and we could look at the flows and VMs like we just did for the other one. But really, we just want to go ahead and move right into the review and publishing phase here. So now, a couple things to note. The group names are auto-generated, right? Because it doesn't really know like what group I should put it in. So it pretty much finds a grouping of VMs and, for whatever criteria adds them into the same group. Now I want to do something, and this will just take a minute. I want to see what's in the group because when I build this in my firewall, I want it to make sense. So this guy in here, that's my DNS server. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to rename this to just really quick. We're going to go DNS and save. So now when I see that in the rule, it's actually going to say DNS instead of just some cryptic name. And you'll see how important this step is when we actually go back. So here we have our HR app. I'm probably complaining that I'm running out of resources there. No big deal. So we're going to switch this to say HR, and this was the app servers. And now we're going to go in here, and let's see, who do we have in here? This is going to be probably my DB. Yep, that's my HR DB server. So let's go ahead and edit this, and we're going to say HRDB. Next one, I think this is an app, HR app servers. And again, we're really building out our tiers. So when our groupings come in here, they make sense to us. And to me, this is, again, you'll see why it's a very important step. It seems like a little bit of work, but again, I want these to be, descriptive. And actually, what was the, we can also see another way to see the members in there today, currently. Again, that was the HR app servers. And that's HR app all, because there was multiple in that group. And again, these are, I could name these whatever. For me, it's just the best way to group them as I go ahead and look at the different members. So it makes sense in the firewall rule. This is all web servers. So essentially it's saying in this group, in this flow, all of those web servers are talking to a particular address or flow. Last couple here, this is probably going to be a DB, I think. No, this is going to be another web. So this is going to be HR web only. HR web only. And I was going to skip through this for the video, but again, it is just so important. And I think I just have one more. And I know this one because it has all VMs. So this is going to be my HR all. All right. So now that that's out of the way, all these groups actually have their respective names now. So when I look at them up here, oh, wow, I can see now, okay, here's my HR tier. Here's my app tier talking to the DNS server. So as I click on different tiers, I can gather different information. And again, I can do some different, filtering or renaming, just like I was doing down there. Now, as I go ahead and start to finish things up here, this is going to make so much more sense that not everything has a formal name yet, and I'll have to go back to it and actually make some more fine tuning here. But really, you can see like, okay, HR web, the destination, any HTTP, that's actually the web server making a request to the load balanced application server. So I'd have to permit that. And again, I can make these more granular. Then I have anyone talking to all web servers via HTTP. I want to permit that because everyone's going to be able to talk to the web pool. Then I have all my application servers and HR talking to the HRDB via SQL, which I want. And then HR app talking to DNS, which I want, so I can do my obviously my name resolution. So we can see same thing in this next group. All these policies look very clean now. Now again, if this was the VRNI world, it's a little bit different, right? Maybe I have a file now, a CSV file, I believe, that I take in and I can manually import that into NSX. I don't have to do that now. I'm allowing all this traffic. My firewall, I can pretty much just say now publish, right? Are you sure you want to publish these rules? Yes. Okay, remember now we're directly inside of NSX-T. Let's go to distributed firewall now. And there we go. All these rules coming in, all these different policies that I just created. I could have changed the policy name back there to whatever I wanted to. Maybe like, now I could obviously do it in here inside of NSX. I could say this is my HR 3-tier app, right? And then I could change the rule name if I wanted to. These are pretty self-explanatory because I did the groupings. Now, it's as simple as that, and that once that finishes up, it'll take a minute or two here. They're published and running, right? So now that's how simple it is with NSX Intelligence to identify an application and implement microsegmentation in NSX-T. And I made a couple changes there, so I have to click publish, but it does all that for you, right? So there was nothing I had to do. Again, I click publish because I changed the 3-tier app name here, but NSX Intelligence built and identified all these flows. I could have done layer 7 context profiles, so you can just see how powerful NSX Intelligence is. And honestly, outside of the beefy system requirements, it's pretty easy to install. What I did was I used an actual IIS server because you have to serve up the OVA and the manifest and cert files to NSX itself. So when I come into NSX, I add an NSX Intelligence node under appliances. So I have to have a web server up. For me, again, I used IIS. I made a couple of basic setting changes because I already had the server. And once NSX connected into my web server, pulled down the files, spun up the VM over here all automatically. Within minutes, I was then collecting data. So I hope you enjoyed this overview. You're going to start to see a lot more data coming out on NSX Intelligence as we launch, especially with NSX-T 3.0 release coming out here in the future. And if you got any questions, definitely there's a ton of content out there on VMware.com, on YouTube. And I will have more segments like this for my channel as well. Hope you enjoyed the session. Take care.